Hi, nice to be with you. It's Dr. Ron here, and today I'd like to talk about the whole notion of learning. As you know, I really believe in lifelong learning. I think it's a major way of keeping our minds and bodies and brains active. It's a way of keeping us in touch with others, and it's a way of enhancing longevity. So, wherever we are in the lifespan, I think the commitment to lifelong learning is real important, not just in your field, but to broaden the base of your knowledge. One of the things, though, that sometimes stands in the way of people maximizing their learning or even trying in a lot of cases is the fact that when you start learning something, you're probably not going to be very good at it at the beginning. The reality is that for most of us, uh, if we haven't grown up, say, with a language or with a particular family tradition that has enhanced our ability to, say, do carpentry or to read or whatever may have been emphasized in the family, then when we start doing it at whatever age, we have to go through a progression. And that's the important thing to keep in mind. If you look at yourself at any point in time and evaluate yourself just based on that point in time, there's a good chance that if your attitude isn't fair, that you're going to evaluate yourself as being mediocre. When you first learn how to use a computer, unless you've grown up with that as a skill, when you first learn how to write cursively, if you still do that, when you first learn how to cook, unless you've been brought up in that environment, you're going to make some mistakes. And if you evaluate yourself based on where you are there, you may never get to here. The reality is learning takes place on a continuum. Change takes place on a continuum. Growth takes place on a continuum. So the important thing to look at is where you are relative to where you've been, and then focus on where you're going. And at any point in time, you should not be satisfied that you're already out there and having completed everything, because otherwise you wouldn't be learning about it. The important thing is, are you better today than you were yesterday? And if you're not, is today kind of an anomaly on the road to progress? And progress rarely takes place in an exact straight line or diagonal line. So that the key takeaway that I think is real important is to recognize learning takes place on a continuum. It's not always a smooth continuum, but it's one in which at any point in time you're probably not as good as you're going to be. You're probably not as good as others, and it's important to not compare yourself to others who've been doing it for a whole lot longer or who may have more innate talent in the area in which you're learning. Because if you do that, if you tend to take that point in time and treat it as if it's mediocrity, you're not going to want to pursue this. There's nothing wrong with pursuing something in which you're mediocre if you can have fun doing it. But if you evaluate yourself as someone who wants to attain the skill in this language or learn how to draw or whatever it may be, that and this applies to not just academic skills, but also physical skills, sports, even grooming, things of that nature that you're trying to be better at. If you evaluate yourself at any point in time as if that's as good as you're going to get, that shuts off learning. In addition to, it may cause you to just evaluate yourself as being mediocre. The more that you learn, the more times you're going to spend in a range where you're not as good as you're going to get. But the true learners get through that. They recognize that they're on a continuum. And that's really my message for today. I encourage learning. I encourage you to recognize that it's on a continuum. Try and figure out something new that you're going to learn. And if you've got some hints that can help others to get past the hump of stopping looking at themselves and considering themselves as mediocre, if you've got some hints in that regard, please share it in the comments, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.